Now we're ready. Good evening. My name is Helen Anthony, Chair of the Committee on Finance, and I'm calling to order our regular meeting Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024 at 6:26 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Anthony,
Present.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Present.
Councilor Anderson,
Present.
Councilwoman Graves,
Present.
Councilor Sanchez,
Present.
Vice President, no absent, you have a forum.
Thank you. And I'd like to recognize Stephanie Shaw, who is here from the Solicitor's Office, subbing in for Zach, who was just with us. Thank you very much. We have Councilor Harris and Pro Tem Pichardo joining us. Thank you very much for coming this evening. We've got our Senior Policy Director, Aaron Easter Gardner, who's here. We have our City Auditor, Gina Costa, here. So thank you very much. And of course, our wonderful clerks, Lauren Gervais and Donna Lee. So with that, Madam Clerk, please read item number 1.
Item 1, resolution granting a tax abatement for Joseph Stafford Apartment, 16 Somerset Street.
Wonderful. So I think we have our Policy Director, Aaron Easter Gardner, and we've got, I think, Mike Murphy. Are you going to testify at it? And you're just in the back. Okay. And maybe available for questions, maybe? No, perhaps. Okay. Aaron, if you join us, please, I'll swear you in.
Raise your right hand. You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
And please state your name and your title for the record.
Aaron Easter Gardner, Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Director of Policy for the City Council.
Mr. Gardner, if you would please tell us what this article is, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, just to give some background, this resolution was drafted on behalf of Councilwoman Harris for Omni Development Corporation for their property at 16 Somerset Street. So just to give some background, as everyone understands, there is a state law and regarding a law, we call it 8% law, and it is applied to properties that actually have affordable units. There is a lot of back and forth on how should be applied, but without getting into that, we wanted to move this resolution in support of Omni, given the fact that they actually brought these units online. This is a 100% affordable property, but unfortunately, they had missed the deadline this March. So they did not have their certificate of occupancy and they did not have residents in the building by March. But as I understand it, they did actually get folks in the building towards the end of March, but they hadn't missed the deadline. So right now they are actually, they have a tax bill at the full tax amount, just to put that on record. They're taxed at $944,000 and $944,856. And if they had qualified in time for the 8% law, their tax bill would have been $75,588. And what the council would look to do is to assist, Omni, and basically make it as if, they made that deadline and they were able to apply for a law. So after this and moving forward, they will be eligible moving forward, but this is just a bridge assistance to help them because they missed that deadline. So.
Is there anyone here from Omni that you testified?
Yes.
Oh, yes. If we can have
Sharon,
Sharon, if you wouldn't mind coming to the table so we can make sure that we have your testimony. If you would just stand and we'll swear you in.
You swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes,
And please state your name.
Sharon Morris, Executive Director, County Development Corporation.
Ms. Morris, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Can you go ahead and verify and also add any details that you can to what we just heard from Mr. Easter Gardner?
Sure. well, Omni Development Corporation, we developed 79 units in, the South Providence area. And one of our buildings at 16 Somerset Street, which consisted of 54 affordable units, rented to families between 30% and 80% AMI. We did not meet the December, we did not place the building in service by December 31st, 2023. We did not get our certificate of occupancy until March of 2024. And as a result of construction delays and issues that were beyond our control, we were delayed in completing the building. So once the building was placed in service, we got our full certificate of occupancy and in April, and we fully leased up in July of 2024, all 59 units, all 54 units, for a total of 79 units that we placed in service during the past year. We initially were underwritten to provide 16 project-based vouchers in that particular building, but it's just 20% of the building. But we've exceeded that, and we provide housing to more than 60% of people's income or have some form of subsidized government subsidies. We have paid unfortunately, we did pay the bill because we had to cover it out of our pocket because we didn't want to be late. But we are paying this bill has caused a hardship because we're not able to meet our investors' stabilized operations definition. So we're not able to pay off our construction loan yet. So we still have construction loan interest that we're paying in addition to other costs because we're not able to meet their definition of stabilized operations because of this excess bill.
Could you just go into detail what caused you said there were some events that had happened that prevented you from meeting the deadline?
Yes.
So can you talk more specifically about what those events are, the events?
So we ordered, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, you guys made electric switch gears for our high-rise building. So we ordered those items in June of 2022. Those items were delayed for over a year. We had to subsequently find items had to go and find another distributor who could sell us the electrical components so that we can complete the electrical installation. We were not able to do that until I think we started doing that in September of 23. And we had anticipated having that done in the spring of 2023 so that we could receive our certificate of occupancy before 12/31 of 23. So this was all beyond our control. It was documented with Rhode Island Housing, our investors. And so we did everything we possibly could to mitigate that, which is why when the buildings were placed in service, we were able to lease up 54 units in less than 4 months because we had a waiting list of over 1,200 families.
And are there any other parts that you had difficulty obtaining other than the electric switch gear?
Well, there were electrical components we had some challenges with. We also had to, that was the biggest one, was the electrical. If we didn't have that, we would have been completed early. So we actually had buildings sitting waiting until those materials were procured and purchased and installed.
Just one more, the hardship for the investors. Can you just talk about that specifically?
So we have a generally 18 to 22-month construction period where you have construction loans. So right now, we are still paying construction interest on that property. I just had to provide them with another $58,000 out of our pocket because we are still in our construction under our construction loan. We have to have 90 days of stabilized operations from the day that we, reach qualified occupancy, which is 90% of qualified occupancy. So your expenses and your income have to meet a 1.15 debt service coverage ratio. And because we were already delayed, we unfortunately, offered concessions so that we can get these units occupied as quickly as possible. And that came at, less income that we were able to generate. And then with the tax bill, so you got less income and then a high tax bill. We're, hoping that we will be able to, get that approval any day now. So we have to submit that, but this decision would be monumental because I can provide this information to them and then they will give us credit for things that we've already paid out of pocket.
So just to be clear, so you say you paid the bill, the 900?
No, not the 944 is our gross potential rent if we were in service for a full year. So that's how our 8% tax bill is calculated.
Okay,
Based on the gross potential rent of those 54 units being placed in service for a full calendar year.
okay, and so what you're looking for some sort of rebate, is that correct?
Yes, we're just looking for 8% on the full tax bill, on the full quote unquote tax bill, even though we hadn't placed in service, but that is what our rent roll, and that's the gross potential for a calendar year. So that's the calculation that our management team, with the rent roll that they provided to the city back in March.
Forgive me, but
It's
in
okay.
terms of, so, all right, so we get an abatement of 163,864, is that what it is?
Yeah, the
Just
tax bill that we
the amount.
received was over 238, if I give or take. That's what the full tax bill was for the year. We didn't place the building in service until March, right? So, keep in mind, we didn't start collecting rents until May, June, and July. So we had to pay that full tax bill out of, construction proceeds because we had to pay it so that we'll be in good standing while we pursue this process. We didn't want to have a delinquency, then come and ask for assistance, and at the advisement of my attorney, they said you gotta pay the bill and then hopefully you'll get the credit.
Yes.
And I just want to comment that I hope I didn't add any confusion here, but when I spoke, I did say, I think I might have said a tax bill of 944,000, but I actually meant that was the gross potential rent that they could receive from the project. So it's not an abatement that large. It's not an extra. I had that clarification.
This may be a legal question, I'm not clear, but is this, we're looking at you. Wouldn't this be for the tax board of review? I mean, I'm just thinking,
So no, tax board of review, when there's a tax appeal under 4415. The process 1526 as well, there's a process, administrative appeal process when you're challenging the taxes paid. This appears to be an abatement, or rather a request for credit that of an overpayment. I'm assuming of course that the tax bill was paid in full rather than on the quarterly system.
okay,
That I'm assuming that math has been vetted. Yeah.
And I just wanted to also add, this is a deed restricted, a 40 year deed restricted property. So it's also, it has a deed restriction. And we have 3 units right now, even though we had initially underwritten 11 units at 80%, we only have 3 units at 80%. So we subsidized it further, because of the need.
okay. I'm gonna open it up for questions, yes, Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you so much. Sharon, is it? First question is, so just for clarity purposes, you paid the 239, you're not going off of the quarter,
They paid the first 2 quarters.
the first 2 quarters, so about half of that?
Yeah.
So you're looking to get credit on that, and then the upcoming payments, you go back to the normal rate, which would be?
I think we would have paid, if we get the abatement, we'll be fine for right now.
yeah.
Yeah, but at least, for the rest of this year, we won't have to have those additional months that we have.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just trying to understand how this, happened, if this is something that we, is this because of like the deadline for a law application is a certain date? Or is
Place
it,
in service, the place in service, the building, unbeknownst to us, we had applied when we submitted all of our appropriate documentation back in 2020. And 2021, so we reached out to the assessors and we have notification that basically said that this property qualifies for the 8% law. Unfortunately, in that fine language buried in the documentation, it was the building has to be placed in service by 12/31 of the year prior to the tax bills being issued. So we did not place this particular building, 16 Somerset, in service by 12/31. But we placed our other buildings in service because we leased up in phases as units became available. So we placed the other units in service prior to 12/31, so those units we didn't have an issue. But this particular building, in its large scale, 54 units, one big building. You can't move anyone in without having all the appropriate sign off, so we had to wait until the landscaping was down, I have a chain, the landscaping or whatever, it took us a while to get it, placed in service at the beginning of the year. In March, you submit your application to the city for your 8 law, for them to consider and for them to, document that you satisfy the requirement. You provide the rent roll, you provide all of your rents and supporting documentation, and then that's how they calculate with you how much your tax bill will be.
thank you, so just to understand, so I guess like in the future, you would maybe wait to place the A-law application or what? I'm just trying to figure out how we can prevent, not just for you, but just for the other folks.
I think I have another building that I'm building hopefully soon. I'm going to be requesting abatement before that building starts, just because I want to avoid if this happens, but if the building's placed in service before the deadline, then it wouldn't be necessary.
Yeah,
So the only way to avoid it, construction delays happen, but you just need to have that in place just in case. That's the only way to avoid this from happening in the future, because you have no control over any construction delays. That's the only.
When did you submit this application or
Oh my gosh, this goes back to 2020.
2020?
Okay, yes.
Can I ask the eternal order is a question? So we're looking to waive 238,000 or 476,000. What do we have to do with these? I'll give them.
60.
How much?
63.
163. Okay. And I guess my question is, if we do this, are we setting a precedent down the road? And how does this affect where we are in court? What's all this? It's very muddy here. And let me just say this, I'm gonna put this out. Every time we get, I know it's different, but every time we get a TSA, we have 4 gentlemen that came before us, TSA. And everybody hammers and says, listen, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing, we need affordable housing. Here we have a case of we did affordable housing, and we still give the money back. So it's like the 4 gentlemen here are little fish compared to Omni Development, the big fish. And we're just gonna look, when we pass it, I'm not saying whether we pass or not, but it's all affordable housing, but obviously it wasn't done in time, so. When we bring the TSA people in, we always hammer, make sure it's done in time, when it's done in time. And now look what happened, 4 years later, we had an issue with it not our fault, it's not our fault, but I'm just saying that. For the little people, when they want the TSAs, and we say, hey, listen, we want affordable housing, and here's someone that's doing affordable housing, and it still got screwed up. Not their fault, that they had to order it and do whatever, but, I just wanna.
I'm not sure what your points are, you can clarify a little more.
Go ahead.
I think the difference is the pressure that gets put on the tax assessor when they're creating a tax roll. That's why we have deadlines. We have deadlines, we need to set a budget, We need to stick to a budget, and that's why we have deadlines. Unfortunately, this is a very good project. But the deadlines weren't met, and you can't, they have to set tax roll. And every time we keep abating taxes, we're eating at our tax base. So we're pushing from the tax base. If we knew that we had this, we just wouldn't have put it in there, and we could have made cuts throughout the budget, throughout the year, and that would have been fine. That would have been perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. But now you're pulling from the tax base. And if we don't stick to this, and if we continue this practice, and it keeps happening, and we keep pulling money out, that's what happens, and that's my only objection to this whole thing is the deadline. We have a deadline, for a purpose. We just have to stay with it. Now, go ahead.
No, I want you to finish,
I
because I was
just-
gonna call on you next.
I
anyway,
don't
so
know who, may I ask him?
You
No,
can
no,
ask
no.
me, Gina, I'm sorry.
The chair, the chair.
Who are you reporting to when you're saying that, we have to get less income is generating? What is it that you're trying to achieve when you're reporting to them? You keep saying we have to have a 1-to-1 debt service ratio. For what purpose?
Yes, you can answer that.
So
Thank you.
can I, first I want to, clarify. We submitted everything prior to. I want to be clear, we submitted our original request in 2020. We submitted it again before we submitted our application to Rhode Island Housing in 22. So I wanted to make that clear. The second point, we submitted this application before your March deadline. So they had it prior to your March deadline, when you guys send the tax bills out and in July. I had to resubmit the information to Dina Stone with my management company, a full packet that showed what we did prior to. And it took a while for it to get resolved. And then we were told that, it was the 12/31 deadline. It was in well before you guys set your budget. I'm a very timely person. And I'll do everything within my power to make sure that I satisfy reporting requirements. The reporting requirements, when I'm saying this particular asset is a low-income housing development. We have a tax credit investor who is the equity syndicator, who will, once the project is complete, they work with Rhode Island Housing, and Citizens Bank was our construction lender. So I'm getting emails every day, when you convert and when is the project? The project's doing almost okay, but for bills like this tax bill that we did not anticipate. I did work with my attorney in 2023 with the tax bill, because once again, our tax bill was higher than projected. But the buildings had not placed in service, so we ate the 2023 tax bills. We didn't come here in 23. In July of 23, we didn't come here asking for any relief, because the properties were under construction. We didn't meet the deadline, and we know this is not an argument to be made. I was instructed by my attorney also to wait, to follow up on this, because it's the same thing the second year, but it's just a few months prior, just a few months after the deadline. But we submitted everything to the city of Providence on time, as we do for 15 other developments, right? So it was just, it wasn't us, and unfortunately, I don't think the young lady that we were working with was aware that we had this documentation. I had to go back into my email, and then I got involved, and this is when we made progress. So I did everything that I was supposed to do before, and this was done before you guys did your budget for the year. So I respectfully just wanted to put that out there.
I understand that, but I think the 12/31 deadline is one I was referring to,
Okay.
so I just to clarify, I think that makes sense. All right, so that is.
And we were instructed to take this step. We met with Denise Muscatelli, had suggested that we come before the council because of this unique circumstance. So she was the one that instructed me to pursue this, because I'm just gonna put that out there. I got a whole email. I can go through here and tell everybody that I spoke to, but I don't want to. I don't think it's necessary.
No, Okay, I'm gonna open it up for questions. Mark, yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, and thank you so much for being here, Sean, and for this project. I had two questions, and I think neither are for you, I think they're for Aaron, so I apologize. Or they might be for Director Silveria in the back, but, so for a project like this, where we had an application and it had been in process for a while, and we we're just kind of like waiting for it to come into service, would we have budgeted this in our budget at the full tax rate, or were we planning on this as our full, or I guess maybe it's a question for you, sir, but and I know you're just playing to lurk in the background, but like, would we have been planning for that?
Does anyone back there want to come up and testify? Or answer that question?
You don't have to.
We have, Mr. Murphy volunteered himself and will be sworn in.
Thank you. I have chocolate.
Let us swing the wings first.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, sorry.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear on the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And please state your name and your title.
Deputy Tax Assessor.
Thank you so much. My question was for a case like this, where she had submitted paperwork throughout the process, and kind of knew this was coming, we knew when it was supposed to be opening, and there is a discrepancy between December 31st and March, but like, would we have built this into our annual budget as at the full tax rate, or would we have been, like, is this a real loss for us, or would we have been planning for this since we knew? the
Had
application
everything
was
been submitted in time, which unfortunately it wasn't, and they were granted preliminary approval, not final approval. There's a number of things that is needed to the $8 certificate of occupancy, previously our scheduled rental, regulatory grants, covenants that were reported. We did not have any of that. We just recently got the regulatory.
And then, can someone, maybe you, Aaron, explain the difference between the two deadlines? Because it sounds like there's a March deadline with the city and there's a December deadline, and I'm not understanding what the difference is.
I closely understand the March deadline, so the December one, I would leave it there.
I'm more confused, so the December deadline usually is the date that the assessment is based in value for that particular year, for the following year's tax rate.
Okay,
The March 15th deadline, that's the deadline that we have for all of our forms and that needs to be submitted, whether it's exemptions and whatnot, that is our final deadline. It might have been a preliminary deadline, and that's extended to March 15th. I think what's speaking about, I'm not sure.
okay.
Want me to answer that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
The place, I think we're both not correct on, it's in December to 12/31 placed in service, so they're two different deadlines. So for us as a building, it's a placed in service date. I know you're talking about even if you had the assessors, those are two different things, so it's two different things, but we're required and, it's 12/31, which is the placed in service date, so that's different than the assessors date.
And then the March date is when you would have gotten paperwork?
The March date is when we, submit the information every year annually, some buildings we do earlier. Some buildings we submit the documentation early because we know, but this particular development, we didn't get the documentation to 3/27. So as we started to submit the material and, it took us a while to get it in, but we hadn't received the tax bill yet, so we were trying to
And
get
is that documentation the rent rolls?
rent rolls, we didn't have the rent roll yet because we weren't occupied yet, but we had the certificate of occupancy, deed restriction, those things, but not the rent roll because it hadn't placed, it hadn't been occupied yet.
And you did submitted the rent rolls when?
We did a follow, I think it was like in July in July, because that's when we received the, correction for our other 9 parcels, in July.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Can we also just, and maybe Erin, this is for you, but might be for your Sharon, just go through the math again, because I'm a little confused with all the different numbers we have here. So like with the 8%, so if they were charged at the 8% tax, it's 75,588. That would be the annual tax. How much was your tax bill for?
That'd be the quarter tax, right?
No,
No, so
hold on 1 second, it was 230.
239.
Oh, 452,
Yes, 239, 452 was the full bill,
and then you've paid about half of
the
that.
first 2 quarters because we're in the second quarter, so I had to pay it.
Okay.
And then just to add, and then the abatement would potentially be for 163,864, which would bring that bill down to 75,588.
Okay, so that would bring the whole thing down, but they've already paid 119,726. So we would actually owe them whatever the difference between 119 and 75,
Is that correct?
right? So we would actually just owe them
I
44,138.
think that is correct. And with the way this would move, if this resolution were to pass, then that would mean that the, city collector would have to remit those funds back to development corporation.
Okay, but so the abatement,
So,
Credit on both items sometimes.
it would be like a credit. going
Yeah.
forward.
either way, they had already paid the amount. So, yes.
So the figure is what, 44?
I think that, so they paid half of the two.
I'm not sure why that isn't in on the resolution, the final figure on the resolution.
119.
No, I'm gonna say. Could you just?
The third quarter?
I'm sorry, what did
Oh, did you
say?
say third quarter?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying not to.
So it was 239, 452. And they paid half, they paid 119,725.50. But for the year, they only owe 75,588. So the difference is like 44,000.
Which is nowhere on this
Yeah, which is not,
problem.
okay. I'm glad I understand the math, though, because I was like, there's a lot of different numbers on here.
Mr. Murphy,
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm not fully prepared, I was not in the impression I was not going to do it.
well, that's okay.
Oh, thank you.
But my understanding that original rent roll that we went 144,000, people, we've had since then subsequently received another one with the higher value.
This is gross potential rent at the time of the application that was submitted in March, which is the deadline that we
So the new one.
tried to comply. The new one, will be for the upcoming year, it'll be for 2020, for the upcoming year, because the units were just placed in service and we'll be submitting that for the 2024 bill, because that's for the subsequent year.
Yeah.
So it's always the year prior
Right,
that you submit with your tax return and your audit.
it is the fire, but I mean, I'm not, I can get gross rent on a building that's not constructed. Also, the value of the assessment was based off 70% completion of the building. That was not done by 12/31 of the previous year. And the applicant had a full right to appeal the taxes, and that was not done. We could have remedied it into that situation instead of this situation.
We did that last year. We appealed last year and we paid for it, and I don't have that with me. And we were told to, because it was late in the year, we were told in 2024, we would be all set. So at that time, we could have been recommended or advised to make sure if this date isn't satisfied to do X, Y, and Z. You know, we paid quite a bit to try to appeal last year, and we weren't successful, so that's why we're here now.
Okay, so do we have more questions for, anyone have any more questions?
I do.
Yes, please, Pro Tem.
How much was paid through the chair? How much was paid in 2023? When you were, how much was paid in 2023 when the appeal was denied?
I don't have that bill unfortunately.
Estimate, it's just under projection, is that what it was?
No, it was over projected, but it was under my construction budget, so it's like,
So it was more than 75,000?
I have to look it up.
Okay. What was I? Oh, in terms of the rent, everything is affordable housing. So you got 80%, you got 60% and 30%, so like 3 tiers. Average rent there is what, about?
Well, the 30% subsidized, those are housing authority units, those are practically housing units from the housing authority. A 60% person Their rent, our one bedrooms are like $982. And then you get a utility, they get a utility allowance about 123, so their rent is about eight and change that they have pocket for one bedroom, at the 60%. 80% will be, closer to the market rate, but below. And we, you know, they don't get the utility allowance because they're the 60%.
Okay, Councilor Harris, would you like to say anything?
As a committee member, you have to know that.
Yes, please, no, you're here supporting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I want to say that, thank you, first of all, for being here, and I want to thank the committee for listening to this, about this project. This project is very, very important to the community as a whole. First of all, there were 34 people that were living in those units when I joined the staff and when I joined the council in 2015. And they were living in horrible conditions. The council president and I went out every Sunday after church to ask these people to consider leaving that unit. Even through our city, working with the city, they couldn't even get in to do even inspections or anything in the house because the people were afraid to let them in, and they was living in horrible conditions. The city as a whole, I say as a whole because from the mayor's office to from Congress on, we all came together and decided that we need to do something in order to make sure these people are living in safe conditions. So first of all, I believe that the affordable housing that have been replaced there have been definitely for our community, have been definitely important for our community to have affordable housing in our community. I am confused around the timing because we did go through a pandemic. Right now, I still have money in this council that has not been spent because of supplies that they claim that they have not been able to get and claim. If you can't get if you can't move the project without occupancy agreement, then I see this as catch-22. I mean, first of all, when Omni took on this project and development, they went full force to make sure that not only did they try to keep the area affordable, but to also bring back the people who were a part of that, the ones that we could keep up with, right? Because we asked also Providence Housing to get involved. So Rhode Island Housing was involved, Providence Housing involved, the congressmen were all involved. Everybody was involved trying to save these units. These units went HUD, they went to Texas. We still looked out for them. We still stopped by these houses until the time came for them to be built. Then we had the horrible pandemic, which threw everything off. I'm not saying that is the cause, but I do know that I still have projects that's not done according to the city because of the fact of material that is not purchased or things that they cannot get to complete these projects. So I want to consider that. I want to think back and say, this is a deed restricted units, they're deed restricted. There was a fight by the city to keep those, by the city council to keep those units. That is important, say for South Providence, to have those housing that the city stepped in. Long before the developer came along, the city was already involved in this. So for me, to hear back and forth that this is similar to the things that happen in the courts, I say not, it's not the same thing. I don't think it's set presence. I think what it does is keep people in decent housing. It has been able to do, the community itself have changed because of those houses there. And I truly appreciate those houses being in and anything we can do to really bring it in our heart to say that I don't know for sure whether the cost will fall on the tenants But if we could do anything to make sure that that don't happen, I would appreciate that from this council. I mean, from this body. I hope I made myself clear, because I'm a little bit tired. I've been here since, I've been one meeting after the other. My mouth is so dry.
You're good enough.
Yeah, I'm going well, sorry.
Yes, Councilor Graves.
I'd like to add my voice to, Councilor Harris's, the fact of the matter, we're talking about an area that is a blighted area with a lot of struggle going on. This group stepped in and did something or tried to do something. And Sharon, Nancy? Oh, okay. What is the makeup of your staff?
My staff,
You and
my
your staff?
management staff, my Omni Development Corporation, we have eight staff members. 7 female, 1 male.
Mhm.
We have, 5 women, African American women. We have, one Hispanic, young lady. We have a Native American and 1 Caucasian.
That alone. We have had so much problems trying to get women of color or people of color into these type of positions. And these women and that young man have went to areas that are still blighted. And the fact that they're there trying their best to give people affordable housing, I think is one of the reasons that we should be fighting for this. And so my vote would be yes from the beginning. I'm just letting you know, because let's be truthful, that area was going through a lot of changes, you know, and
the people.
we in that community, people around that community have been fighting for decades, not years, decades for improvement. So,
And it is a big improvement, if you
Yes.
don't mind me speaking.
No, go ahead.
yes, it is. And these people that they're helping are the ones that are one step away from homelessness. Some of them are half a step away. So we really need to look into that. Because we are always talking about we need housing for the affordable housing. We're always talking about we don't want any more homeless people. We have a group that is trying to keep people housed at a decent rate. And we're talking about, we need to show them dignity. Well, we need to show the people that are housed that are a step away from being unhoused, dignity to them. That's all I have to say.
Yes, Councilor Anderbaugh, thank you very much, Councilor Graves, Councilor Anderbaugh.
I do super quick, but also just want to say thank you for this project, and also think the intent was for it to be operational within that deadline, and it, as Councilman Harris said, these delays are real, and like, I think most people around the table know I'm kind of obsessed with climate change and electrification, and it's been a really big issue for folks trying to electrify to get this electrical equipment. It's pretty impossible for some developments, and so this seems like a small concession to make for them trying to bring this on time, and the global supply chain is what's held this up. And necessarily a precedent, it's happening with a lot of, and anyway, it's a really important project, and this seems completely out of your control, but you can get electrical equipment, and something that's been happening to a lot of projects.
Yes, Councilor Pro. Councilor Sanchez.
My only question is, I definitely support, working, with this, situation. I'm just kind of confused if like the numbers match up. Are we good on the numbers?
Yeah,
I think we're good on the numbers. I think that Councilor Anderbaugh, we work the numbers in a different way.
Yeah,
That the numbers are correct.
yes, the numbers are correct.
They are correct in here, so we'd be acting by.
So we're good to go on this?
That's my understanding. Unless anyone wants to tell me differently.
No, I think Councilor Anderson was correct, and you're right, that the 44K probably should have been included in one of these whereas clauses, but it was not, but thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, yes, Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question in terms of, before I say something, what is that real number? That at the end, it comes out to 119. 119,
It's
1,063.
Yeah.
163, so
864.
those were
Eviction is
and that was the the 2 quarters that were paid,
119 is the 2 quarters that were paid.
Yeah.
and
The
then,
163 that's in there is the relief that was submitted on our behalf.
so in addition,
No.
No,
that's
I
just-
can
that's
clarify the
just-
math if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah, because
Already,
I
but
wanna-
The juice, the number in here, the 163, is so 239,452 is the tax bill they would have gotten if they were paying full taxes. If they're doing
Right.
8 lots, 75,588, the difference between that is 163,864 that they shouldn't have been billed for if they get the 8 law. And so that's the abatement. What the 44 was that I was saying was they've already paid. Like, they've overpaid, and so like the difference between that is 44. But like the actual abatement between like what the tax bill would have been. Versus what the tax bill they got was for the full year is the 163,8.
so then, I have a question to finance. In terms of the budget that was passed. What implication does it have now? If one, we want to,
Poor Sarah.
return the money or the other, credit. What implication does that have?
Sarah's getting sworn in.
Yes, please swear in.
It's
still there.
Testimony about to give us a truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And please state your name and your title for the.
So the full taxation, the 200 and. Is what is included in the budget. Just the 12/31 deadline is everyone's tax property for the bills that we received in July were the value as of 12/31/2023. That's why that value is used. If the project wasn't completed, it didn't have all the necessary requirements to meet that state law qualification. That's why it wasn't included. That a lot abated amount was not granted at 12/31.
And to answer your question, at the end of the day, that just means that that amount, the 163, is just no longer immediately recoverable by the city. That's what that would mean.
So there's no hole in the sense that you never accounted it in the budget.
It is counted in the
It
budget.
is counted, so there's money that we don't have.
Correct.
I just want to be clear on that, that's what it's happening and the implication on the budget. And with that said, I certainly understand and the points that were made in terms of, TSAs that come before us. Whether they're developers that are smaller or bigger. The fact is that development like these, both Kathy or Sharon or Canal.
Well, she's not around anymore.
She's not around, but
She
those-
did those projects.
yeah, so those, understandingly, in terms of housing, putting these deals together with banks and creditors, it's so complicated in order to get real affordable housing. And that's why, when smaller, developers come before us, or even someone trying to develop housing, it's so complicated because it doesn't make sense to them, dollar wise, to go into neighborhoods that in essence, they're not gonna get the rents that you just heard, whether it's less than $1,000. And so as we continue to invest or create affordable housing, I ditto the passion and the struggle that has been before us in our city and in our neighborhoods. And granting this type of abatement makes more sense for the city council to make because of deadline, because of construction and all that stuff. But more so because of the struggling neighborhoods, but also more so because of entities just like these nonprofits that make it so tangible, bringing all the parties, all the partners together to bring this affordable housing. Because if they didn't exist in less than 10 years, this whole city will be at market rate. And so I just wanted to add that.
I'd like to make a motion, we pass number 1.
Second.
Okay, a motion recommending approval of agenda item
Yeah.
1 was made by Councilor Taylor, seconded by Councilor Anderson, all in favor? Aye, all opposed. I'm gonna say thank you very much to, thank you very much.
Thank
to
you,
our
Sharon.
team.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. And thank you, Aaron, even
Yeah,
though
thank
you
you.
forgot.
Thank you, Aaron.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please read agenda item 2.
Item 2, the ordinance in amendment of subsequent revenue and timing, Article 2, division of purchase order, section 7, competitive bidding of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence.
Okay, we're gonna have our Deputy Director, Aaron Easter Gardner, give us the presentation on this. This has been before us before.
Yeah.
From Shelley Peterson.
Mhm.
And so we have been trying to get this done for a little bit, and I think we're there, so.
Yeah, I think-
take it away.
I think we absolutely are there.
Madam Chair, we
So,
have a substitute for us.
Oh, my God. All right, may I have
So these were.
a motion to substitute,
Just a motion to substitute this item.
substitute for the ordinance that we have in our packet.
So moved.
Second. All right, motion made by Councilor Gray, seconded by Councilor Anderson, all in favor? All opposed? Okay,
all right.
everybody have it in front of them, the amendment. I'm not looking.
It's this guy.
All right.
Just to confirm, the amendment is for item number 2.
This is the amendment for item number 2, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Yes, it is the amendment for item number 2. All right, yes, please proceed.
Yeah, thank you. So, just to give a little bit of background, a couple of months ago, I actually sat before the committee and we actually did look to move a similar ordinance forward, but it was actually a direct, charter change. And part of the reason why that happened was that, in 22, the voters voted to actually, increase the threshold. However, it didn't get transcribed into all of the city book codes of ordinance books. It was not online. So there was actually a lot of confusion. So we were moving to actually update the charter, but it was updated already. And the only thing that stood is 2127 with competitive bidding. There's just language that is updated because now the purchasing department uses the language that was passed by the voters in 22. So as of right now, with the way this ordinance sits, it is null. It doesn't mean anything. So we wanted to, clean house and make sure that this ordinance matches the new language of the charter. So all this is updating the language to match, and that is actually what the thresholds of $10,000 and $20,000 for construction projects. That is what the city is moving forward with now, and that is also what the state moved forward with maybe 2 years ago. So we're just updating our code of ordinances to match what is now in the charter and also what the state is doing. So it just hurts us to look at an ordinance that means nothing. We just want to do that.
Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you. Whose responsibility is it, Aaron, to make sure that the ordinances are updated to what was passed in 2022?
So I rely on the clerk's office, but as I understand it, and I mean, maybe someone from the office can speak, but I know that Tina had worked with someone else in the city that was supposed to update these books, and the books that were all across the city did not have the new language, but some books had it. I guess they just didn't make a complete sweep for all departments that use them. So yeah, I can't speak to who the person is that actually takes those new sheets and inserts them in a book, but I just know that it hadn't been done at the time that the policy team was reviewing all the documents. That's the background there.
Yes, Councilor Anderson.
Thanks. That's just a quick question, because in what got submitted on the docket for our amendment, there's something about letters of communication belts shall be submitted to social board, chambers, but like.
You are, I think you're looking at number 3. That is right. So yeah, we are looking at 2. Right?
My bad.
There's no.
It's in my question.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's extremely confusing because they are the same
It is
exact
same.
title. So.
Yeah, with the same.
We were gonna discuss them together, we are not. We're discussing, there was gonna be more changes to this paragraph, as you can see in our next agenda item, but we're discussing them separately, and we'll be voting on them separately, and tonight, well, we'll get there. So anyway, this is just the changes on this sheet. That's what we're talking about, and we'll get to the next one.
Cool.
In a minute.
So I make a motion, we approve number 2.
Okay, motion made to approve number 2, by Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Vanderboss, all in favor? Aye, all opposed.
So, Madam Chair, approved as
I'm
amended.
sorry.
Approved as amended, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
The second, and then,
I'd like to make a motion that we approve number 2 as amended.
And I second.
okay. The motion is correct. No, it was.
Aye.
Aye. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Everybody's.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, please read the next agenda item.
Item 3, an ordinance in amendment of chapter 21, revenue and finance, article 2, division of purchase orders, section 21-27, competitive bidding of the code of ordinances of the city of Providence.
Okay, so this matter, I am gonna ask for a motion to continue only because, we do, the, city solicitor's office would like a moment to review this and they have some comments to make, and I want to make sure that we hear from them, so we don't, so there isn't anything violative of, we want to pass good legislation, so I'd like to just continue this, this matter, but I know that, Pro Tem would like to say something briefly.
Yeah. I sponsored this, and, let's speak to, text with the chairwoman. I just want to say, and I agree, to continue it, I just want to say that, a message also, I got a call yesterday. I know that we introduced this several weeks ago, and we got a call yesterday when there were some issues with this, or concerns regarding this amendment. And I look forward to working with the administration or the city solicitor, whoever has the issues, because the purpose of this is to, increase the competitive bidding and also reduce these cooperative purchasing agreements within the state as known as piggyback. And more clarification and more transparency to the process. So I look forward to seeing this again before you, and thank you.
Thank you for introducing it. May I have a motion? Motion to continue, yes. Counselor Graves, seconded by Counselor Taylor, all in favor? Aye, all opposed. Thank you very much, Pro Tem. All right, agenda item number 4.
Item 4, an ordinance establishing a private utilization agreement for 381 Lincoln Street.
Thank you so much. Attorney Conley, thank you for your patience. I did put agenda items 4 through 6 on our agenda. We usually like some time between our public hearing but we're not gonna be meeting again until January, and I just didn't want to make the applicants wait any longer. We thought we were in a position to act on it this evening, so that is why we are, why we have these items on our agenda. So I will ask if anyone has a question for Attorney Conley or the owner developer.
Well, or we're gonna do all these.
No, we're gonna do them separately,
Okay.
but thank you for the reminder. We also received a packet of documents that pertain to all of items 4 through 6, which we're gonna have to mark, not as an exhibit, but we're gonna mark, how would you recommend we handle it?
can mark it as an exhibit or a handout.
We're gonna mark it as a handout that deals with items 4 through 6. May I have a motion?
Second.
A motion made by Counselor Vanderboss, seconded by Counselor Taylor, all in favor? Aye, all opposed.
I appreciate that, Grace.
Certainly. Okay, so, with that said, do we have any questions or would you like the opportunity to discuss this item number 4 further, or we have Attorney Conley here and we have the developer? I think.
Good question.
Yes.
I asked this about 5, but I didn't ask about 4. Is the council person supportive of 381? Lickenden?
Yes, so
If
I will say,
either answer is fine.
I will say, it is my impression that he is, but I have not spoken to him about it.
Okay.
I had asked about 1, so.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve number 4. I think we heard I mean, I don't wanna drag it out, say,
Yeah.
they've all put on their show and, well, some of them are actually, the 6 ones up ahead, that's kind of like a repeat. And I think they've, done a job explaining everything, so.
There is a
Motion
motion,
approved
is there a
number 4.
second?
Second.
A motion to approve agenda item number 4, seconded, made by Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Ingebaugh. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Madam Clerk, please read item number 5.
Item 5, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for 241 Cocosette Avenue.
Okay, again, any questions? Comments?
I'm gonna say the same, make a motion to approve number 5 if there's no questions.
Okay, motion to approve made by Counselor Taylor. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Graves. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed. Madam Clerk, please read item number 6.
Item 6, an ordinance establishing a tax stabilization agreement for 161 Daniel Street.
Same,
Okay,
make a motion to approve number 6.
Second.
okay, motion to approve made by Counselor Taylor, seconded by Counselor Ingebaugh. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed. We will be recommending approval. of
Thank you
all
very
3
much.
items. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for staying
Thank
this evening. Sorry it took so long.
Also, for what it's worth, the debate about, everything getting updated online, I really appreciated that. It drives me crazy. It's a problem across the entire state. It's not just
Yeah.
Providence. Really appreciate the discussion on that.
You're welcome.
With that, we are going to
Make a motion, we adjourn, well, we don't need a motion, I'm gonna make it anyway.
Either make it or don't make it.
All in favor?
Thank you, Finance Committee. House is important.